Bonjour, je m'appelle Vicky. Vicky's Visions Fun Facts. My husband and I opened Vicky's Visions in March 2017. 3 years next month. Yay! My passion is in resin painting, but I do a little bit of everything. I'm a certified epoxy resin installer. We're located in Winslow, Arizona. It's a pretty small town. Do you know the song? I'm not gonna sing it for you. Okay, let's make some art. Alright guys, today we're gonna do a diptych with two 18 by 24 inch wooden art panels. I'm using pearl mica powder, black glitter mica powder, epoxy candy shimmer ink pearl, and some isopropyl alcohol. And I've already pre-mixed the pearl and the black glitter directly into epoxy and covered both panels with a very thin layer. I did a total of 32 ounces for both of these pieces. I'm going very, very thin. I'm dripping the pearl shimmer ink and some black glitter mixed in isopropyl alcohol on top. I would have used black shimmer ink, which would have been my preference, but I didn't have any, so I used the mica powder and isopropyl alcohol, which has a very similar effect. And I'm just torching out the bubbles. And just so you know, this first layer is very thin, and it's not going to bounce back from the isopropyl alcohol as easily because it is so thin. It's a very imperfect first layer, but it's okay because it's just a first layer. It's just my background color, and I'm not concerned about the divots, the pocks, or anything in this. I'm going to be doing several layers on this, and you're not going to see any of that later on. So not worried about these imperfections. Wanted to show you that if you get something like this, if you try this technique, your first layer doesn't have to be a perfect flat sheet of glass. So moving on to the next part, we are going to wait a few hours. I want this to cure for probably 3 to 4 hours before I do my next bit on this, because I don't want my next bit of color to sink in. So I've waited a few hours, and now I'm going to mix in my colors, and I'm marking my sticks with a black Sharpie. This will let me know how opaque or translucent my colors are when I mix. It's just my little way of deciding if I have added enough color to my epoxy, and I get the look that I'm trying to achieve. I'm using epoxy candy mica powder, and I would be using more epoxy candy mica powder, but I'm out. I'm waiting on an order. So I am experimenting with this metallic paint that I have. It's not meant for epoxy. I don't necessarily recommend doing this, but I love to experiment, so I'm trying something new. These colors are beautiful in the paint jars, but I'm not sure exactly if they're going to keep that color in the epoxy. So we're just experimenting and seeing how it goes. I mixed up 24 ounces of epoxy, and I'm spreading it out equally amongst all these 5 colors, and we'll get those mixed up and see how it looks. Now this purple mica powder from Epoxy Candy is absolutely gorgeous, and the shimmer is amazing. Now these paints that I'm experimenting with, on the other hand, lost a lot of the metallic effect once I mixed it with the epoxy. Also, I wanted to let these sit for a while and get firm. I'm kind of going for the veins, and I don't want them to spread or disperse too much when I put them on. And that paint in the epoxy it kind of clumped up a bit, and it didn't get quite as opaque as I wanted, and like I said, it lost some of that metallic sheen. So I'm adding some Epoxy Candy Shimmer Inks just to brighten up the color a bit and to make them a bit more opaque. And so I'm squeezing those in, and I'm not going to mix them too thoroughly. I kind of want ribbons running through if I can, so I'm just going to kind of slightly mix those in before I pour them. And I'm also going to pour all of these into a dust pan and try to pour them on all at the same time. So I'm lining up my colors in this dust pan in the order I want them, and not all of the color from the cups is going on the dust pan. I'm going to save some to put on by hand individually, but more than half of the cup is going on the dust pan. I should also note, guys, I should be wearing gloves, and I'm not. Sometimes I just get in a hurry, I get excited, I start mixing, and I'm not wearing gloves. I have worked with this particular epoxy though for a very long time. I know I'm not allergic, and if I do get any on my skin, I immediately clean it off. But please wear gloves, especially if you don't know your epoxy that well, and if you don't know if you're allergic at all. You don't want to get it on your skin if you don't have to. So here we are with the dustpan, and I'm kind of going for a sweeping look. I didn't quite intend this, but it did end up looking like a pendulum pour, if you've seen those. I'm just getting it on there, kind of wanting like a wave type look. So it's coming out. I have let that epoxy sit. It's moving very slowly out of the pan. It's hot. It's started to cook. It's thick. So it's not coming out very fast, and it didn't quite come out as thick as I had wanted. So now I'm gonna go back with the epoxy that I had saved in the cups and thicken that up a little bit, just trying to follow what I just poured and add a little bit extra thinner ribbons around the edges of both of these panels. Alrighty guys, so now I'm just going to add a little bit of Epoxy Candy Shimmer Inks on top. I'm using corresponding colors to corresponding colors. So a slightly different shade of purple, slightly different shade of blue, green, yellow, orange, and so on. I'll list the exact colors that I used and put a link in the description to where you can purchase all these. Also, I'll be adding a coupon code for you to get some extra goodies from Epoxy Candy. Thank you, Epoxy Candy. So check out the description if you're interested in getting any of the products that I've used in this video today. Once I get all this on there, I'm going to start torching. Remember, alcohol is flammable. Be careful. If you don't want to see little flames like that, wait longer than I did. Sometimes I get impatient and you get a little flame pop up, but alcohol burns off really fast. Those are really tiny. But if you've been spraying isopropyl alcohol in copious amounts, please make sure that you wait long enough before torching so you don't have a huge flame pop up. Always a good idea to have a fire extinguisher or a bucket of water nearby, just in case, guys. Be careful. All right, there are pocks and divots, and I don't care. I am actually loving this. I love the texture. I love the movement. The imperfections add so much depth. So I'm gonna leave this alone for at least 4 hours, and then I'm going to add a clear coat over the entire piece. So I love this, and I could leave it alone right here. Many people told me I should, but of course I can't. I got to add more. So I added my initials down in the corners of both of these panels, and now I am adding a clear coat. So again, I just did 32 ounces for both panels. And I'm not going to do anything else on top of this clear coat. Basically, I'm embedding my initials into these paintings, and this is going to create more depth when I add just one more layer of color after this. So I'm spreading it out. I'll get it torched. This clear coat, now I am trying to be more careful with. I want to see the imperfections below, but this one I don't want to have a bunch of pocks and dust and divots in. I've turned the heat off in this house. I don't want air movement. It's plenty warm in here. These last 2 layers, I would like a little bit more perfection than those first 2 layers. Even though those bits of imperfection were wonderful, we're trying to make it a little bit nicer now. torched this really good, got all of the micro bubbles out, and I'm waiting a few hours. It's been about 3 hours. I've mixed up exactly like I did before, the exact same colors, same ratios, added the Shimmer Inks in with the paints just like last time. So this time I'm not using the dustpan though, I'm just adding ribbons over the original ribbons, same colors, but a little bit thinner because I want to see the different levels. Again, I've let this kind of cook in their cups so that what I'm pouring is very hot, it's very thick, and I just don't want this to spread and bleed too much. So going over exactly the same way, and gonna add sprinkles of the Shimmer Inks on top just exactly like I did the first layer, and gonna torch out the bubbles at the end and leave it alone. So yeah, I'm just repeating exactly what I did before except no dustpan. All right, here it is. So I don't know if you technically would call this 4 layers. There's 2 full layers of epoxy on here that actually completely cover the panels, but then there's the in-between layers of color that don't completely cover the panels. So there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of color. I purposely didn't want to do a full clear coat over that last bit of color. I like that it's not completely flat. I do want it to be shiny, no bubbles in this last bit, but I like the dimension, I like the depth, and I like that it's bumpy where that last bit of color was put on. So this is still wet and curing. I'm exhausted. I've been working on this for I don't know, 14, 16 hours, a long day, and I'm gonna leave it to cure overnight and we'll come back tomorrow. The magic of editing, it's tomorrow and it's done. So here it is. I didn't tape the back like I should have. I get so impatient, guys. I get an idea in my head and I've got to get it down, and so a lot of times I don't bother taping the backs of these, which would save me from having to sand drips off. But when I gotta do what's in my head, I gotta do what's in my head. So I will suffer the consequences and sand the drips off. Here it is. You will see kind of some chunkiness in that last layer of color on there. That's that paint I was experimenting with and its reaction with the epoxy. I don't mind. I like the texture. I just love the way that this turned out. I like the imperfections. I like the texture. I love that it's not flat. And I'm just super stoked about this piece and hope you are too, and give it a try if you want. Let me know how it goes. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.